Have you ever wondered why some people walk into a room and instantly draw others in? Not because they're the loudest, not because they're the most beautiful, but because something about their presence just feels magnetic? They speak and people listen. They connect and others feel seen. It's not magic, it's psychology. The truth is, attraction isn't built on appearance or charm alone. It's built on language, how we speak, what we say, and even more importantly, how our words make others feel. Because the right words, spoken with emotional intelligence and authenticity, can open doors in people's minds and hearts that manipulation never could. You see, words aren't just sounds. They are signals. Every word you use carries energy. It shapes how people perceive you, trust you, and ultimately, how they're drawn toward you. Today, we're going to explore what I call the 4 secret words that attract anyone. But before you imagine some manipulative trick or pickup formula, let's be clear. This is not about control. It's about connection. Real attraction, the kind that lasts beyond first impressions, is rooted in respect, empathy, and genuine understanding of human behavior. When you understand the psychology behind language, you begin to realize that communication is less about speaking and more about how you make someone feel heard, seen, and valued. This is what leaders, negotiators, and emotionally intelligent people master. It's what makes someone unforgettable, not because they tried too hard, but because they understood the quiet art of influence. So, what are these 4 words? What are these psychological cues that instantly deepen trust and draw people closer? Each of these words represents a deeper mindset, a way of thinking and speaking that resonates at a subconscious level. Because ultimately, we don't remember every word someone says, but we always remember how they made us feel. The first word is simple, yet it carries more psychological weight than any other in the English language. You. At first glance, it doesn't seem powerful. It's ordinary, casual, even routine. But within that word lies the foundation of all human connection. Because when you use the word you, something subtle yet profound happens in the human brain. It shifts focus. It tells the other person, I see you. I'm speaking to you. You matter. And that is one of the deepest emotional needs we all share, the desire to be seen, heard, and valued. In psychology, this ties directly to the principle of validation. Validation is not agreement, it's acknowledgement. It says, I understand your experience, I recognize your emotions, and I respect where you're coming from. When we speak using you, we naturally direct our attention outward instead of inward. Most people, without realizing it, communicate from a self-focused perspective. I think, I want, I feel, I need. But when we shift to you, our energy reverses. It becomes about the other person, and that's when connection begins. Think about a time when someone genuinely looked at you, called your name, and said something like, you're doing an incredible job, or you handled that situation really well. For a brief moment, your guard dropped. You felt recognized. That's the power of you. It bypasses the intellect and speaks directly to emotion. Because psychologically, the human brain is wired to be self-referential. We process information through the filter of, how does this relate to me? So, when you start your communication by centering on the other person, you immediately engage their emotional attention. This principle is not limited to personal relationships. In leadership, negotiation, and influence, the most effective communicators always lead with you. They understand that persuasion isn't about forcing people to agree. It's about aligning with their perspective. If you listen to great speakers or communicators, you'll notice how frequently they use that word. You have the power to change this. You deserve to feel confident. You can make this happen. It's deliberate. It's human-centered. It draws people in, not through pressure, but through inclusion. But here's where most people go wrong. They use you without presence. They say the word, but their tone, body language, or intention betrays their authenticity. When it comes from ego, it feels manipulative. When it comes from empathy, it feels magnetic. The difference lies in presence, your eye contact, your composure, your tone. All of it communicates whether you're speaking to someone or speaking at them. Presence means that when you say you, your attention is fully there. You're not waiting to respond. You're observing, listening, connecting. In behavioral psychology, this kind of communication activates a sense of psychological safety. The other person feels comfortable opening up because they sense your genuine attention. This is the key to influence that doesn't need force. People are naturally drawn toward those who make them feel understood. That's what builds attraction, not just in romance, but in leadership, business, and everyday interactions. There's a quiet authority that comes with using you well. It shows that you're not trying to impress anyone, you're trying to connect. You're not here to dominate the space. You're here to share it. That balance of confidence and humility is what makes communication powerful. When you use you thoughtfully, it becomes less about talking and more about engaging in a mutual exchange of energy and respect. One of the best examples of this is in high-stakes interviews or conflict resolution. People like Evy Poumpouras mastered this art during her time in protective service and interrogation. She understood that people opened up when they felt seen. She would direct questions in a way that kept the focus on the other person. You must have felt that was difficult. Or, you seem like someone who values honesty. In those moments, the power dynamic shifted. Instead of resistance, there was rapport. Instead of defensiveness, there was dialogue. That's the psychology behind you. It's not a trick. It's awareness in action. It reminds us that attraction and influence start with empathy. Every time you use you sincerely, you send an unspoken message. This conversation isn't just about me, it's about us. You communicate that you care enough to step outside of yourself, even for a moment, to understand another person's world. And that single act, when done consistently, creates connection that can't be faked or forced. So as we move forward, remember this. Before you try to impress anyone with your knowledge, achievements, or charm, learn to center your words around them. See the person in front of you, not as an audience, but as a human being with needs, hopes, and emotions. Because the truth is, people don't remember how perfect your words were. They remember how personal they felt. And that begins with one powerful shift in focus: you. The second word, deceptively simple yet profoundly influential, is because. At first glance, it seems mundane, a conjunction used to explain reasoning. But in the realm of human psychology, it carries immense power. The word because taps directly into one of the most fundamental aspects of human cognition: our need for understanding. Our brains are wired to seek causality, to find reasons behind actions, decisions, and events. When you pair a request, statement, or suggestion with because, you provide the mind a bridge, a logical or emotional pathway that makes the other person feel informed, considered, and respected. Research in behavioral psychology highlights this power vividly. In a famous study, when participants were asked to cut in line at a copy machine, simply providing a reason, even a trivial one, dramatically increased compliance. When the word because preceded the reason, people were far more likely to agree, even if the reason was minimal. This is not about manipulation. It is about acknowledging the other person's intelligence and giving them the context they unconsciously crave. It signals, I'm not asking arbitrarily, I'm considering your perspective. And that alone can make communication feel more trustworthy and engaging. In the context of attraction and meaningful connection, because functions on both emotional and intellectual levels. When you explain yourself or offer insight using because, you are showing that your intentions are deliberate. People are naturally drawn to clarity and consistency. Ambiguity, uncertainty, or abrupt statements often trigger skepticism or distance, whereas statements with because provide a sense of reasoned thought. For example, saying, I'd love to hear more about your project because I genuinely value your perspective conveys consideration, respect, and curiosity all at once. It opens the door for deeper dialogue and signals emotional attentiveness. But because is effective only when combined with authenticity. If you use it mechanically, as a formula, it can feel forced. The tone, delivery, and underlying intention are what give the word its magnetic quality. There is an elegance in simply saying, because with calm conviction, allowing the person to sense that you are thinking about them, that you're not speaking for the sake of speaking, but for the sake of shared understanding. It creates a rhythm of communication that is inherently reassuring because it acknowledges that every interaction has meaning and purpose. Another subtle but powerful aspect of because is its role in framing narratives. In storytelling, persuasion, and even casual conversation, people are drawn to explanations that make sense of the world. By integrating because into your communication, you naturally create a framework for coherence. You invite the other person to follow your thought process, to align with your perspective without pressure, and to feel a sense of psychological security. This is particularly important in attraction because trust and comfort are the foundation of any lasting connection. When someone understands why you are speaking, acting, or reacting, they feel less threatened, more included, and more willing to engage. Because also amplifies influence in subtle, everyday ways. When you provide reasoning, you are giving people permission to enter a shared mental space. It signals that their response matters and that their participation is welcomed, not coerced. This creates what psychologists call reciprocity of engagement. When someone perceives that you are considerate of their thoughts or feelings, they are naturally inclined to respond in kind. This is not a transactional formula. It is the quiet, almost invisible psychology of human connection that builds rapport, attraction, and mutual respect. In interpersonal dynamics, using because demonstrates emotional intelligence. It shows that you understand the importance of context, explanation, and clarity. It communicates patience, thoughtfulness, and a non-dominating presence. When used consistently, it shifts the energy of conversation from abrupt or one-sided statements to collaborative exploration. It signals, without needing to say outright, that you value the other person's perception and that you are present with both your words and your mind. The word because also creates a rhythm of safety in conversations. It reduces defensiveness, encourages openness, and subtly reinforces trust. In relationships, this can mean the difference between someone feeling dismissed or genuinely heard. It bridges gaps between individuals, aligning thought and emotion in a way that feels effortless, yet deeply resonant. And when attraction is considered through this lens, because becomes more than a word, it becomes a conduit for understanding, empathy, and influence rooted in respect. The third word, one that holds the extraordinary power to transport someone beyond the ordinary, is imagine. This word invites the mind to step into possibility, to explore scenarios that have not yet occurred, and to feel emotions that are still only potential. At first glance, imagine may appear whimsical or abstract, but psychologically, it is one of the most effective tools for connection and attraction. When we ask someone to imagine, we are not asking them to agree or comply. We are asking them to participate. We are inviting them to co-create a mental and emotional experience alongside us. This act of shared imagination creates a subtle magnetic bond because the human brain responds profoundly to visualization. Neuroscience tells us that the brain often reacts to imagined experiences in much the same way it reacts to real ones. When you ask someone to imagine a scenario, the emotional and cognitive pathways associated with that scenario activate as if it were occurring in reality. This means that simply using the word imagine can make people feel, anticipate, and emotionally invest in a situation that exists only in the mind. In the context of attraction, this is powerful. It allows you to move beyond superficial interaction and into a space where feelings, curiosity, and anticipation are generated without coercion. You are creating an experiential bridge between yourself and the other person. Imagine works because it implicitly empowers the other person. It subtly shifts them from a passive listener to an active participant. When someone imagines alongside you, they are not being told what to think or feel. They are being invited to explore their own responses. This is why leaders, educators, and master communicators frequently use this word. The word imagine also bypasses resistance. In human interaction, people often approach new ideas, suggestions, or connections with skepticism. When you frame a scenario with imagine, you circumvent the immediate judgments of the conscious mind and engage the subconscious. You allow the person to feel the potential of a situation before their rational mind questions it. This is subtle, not manipulative. You are not coercing belief. You are simply creating a canvas for thought and emotion to coexist. Attraction is rarely built through argument or assertion. It is built through shared mental and emotional resonance, and imagine is one of the most effective words to facilitate that resonance. Furthermore, imagine fosters curiosity, which is a core component of human engagement. Curiosity drives people to explore, ask questions, and mentally invest in experiences. When someone is curious, they are emotionally present, attentive, and receptive. By encouraging imagination, you spark this natural curiosity, and in doing so, you draw people in without pressure or performance. The person you are interacting with begins to associate you with the excitement of possibility, the pleasure of mental exploration, and the feeling of being understood in a space that feels safe yet stimulating. Another layer of the power of imagine lies in its ability to create alignment between emotion and vision. People are often influenced not just by what they are told, but by what they can feel. When you ask someone to imagine, you are allowing them to embody an emotional experience that they may not yet have had. For example, imagine a future where your work is recognized the way it deserves, immediately connects to feelings of pride, validation, and aspiration. That connection is compelling because it bypasses superficial traits or arguments and speaks directly to the person's desires, fears, and ambitions. It engages the limbic system, the part of the brain responsible for emotion, motivation, and decision-making, which is central to attraction and rapport. Using imagine also reflects emotional intelligence and composure. It demonstrates that you understand the subtle dynamics of human thought, that people are not passive objects to be persuaded, but conscious participants with feelings, hopes, and perspectives. When you invite someone to imagine, you are acknowledging their inner world, signaling respect for their autonomy, and creating a safe yet stimulating space for interaction. This mirrors the way exceptional communicators, like Evy Poumpouras, operate. They understand that influence is not about dominance, but about guiding attention, shaping experience, and connecting through presence and subtlety. Finally, the word imagine cultivates a sense of collaboration and shared vision. It allows you and the other person to step into a hypothetical reality together, even briefly, forging a subtle sense of we without forcing commitment. This shared mental space fosters empathy and connection. People are naturally drawn to experiences that make them feel included, valued, and inspired. By asking them to imagine, you are inviting them into a moment of co-creation, a psychological collaboration that strengthens rapport, deepens attraction, and makes your presence feel magnetic without artifice. Imagine is not about illusion or fantasy. It is about potential, engagement, and emotional resonance. It creates a bridge between intention and experience, between curiosity and connection, between presence and influence. When used consciously, it allows you to communicate in a way that feels collaborative, empowering, and magnetic. It is a word that speaks to the heart, engages the mind, and invites the soul to participate. All qualities that define authentic attraction. The fourth word, deceptively simple yet profoundly powerful, is together. At its core, together is more than a word. It is a principle, a subtle but profound psychological cue that signals unity, inclusion, and partnership. Unlike words that focus on the self or the other, together bridges the space between individuals, creating a shared identity, a sense of collaboration, and an emotional alignment that is rare in human interaction. When used intentionally, together communicates an unspoken promise. We are aligned. We move forward as one. Your presence and perspective matter as much as mine. This is the essence of attraction that endures, beyond superficial appeal or fleeting charm, because it resonates with a fundamental human desire, the need for connection, belonging, and shared experience. Psychologically, humans are wired to seek connection. From evolutionary biology to modern social dynamics, belonging has always been central to survival and well-being. People are more engaged, more open, and more receptive when they feel part of something larger than themselves. The word together taps into this instinct. It invites inclusion without coercion. It creates alignment without force, and it fosters cooperation without demand. In communication, whether professional, platonic, or romantic, using together subtly shifts the energy of interaction from individualism to collaboration. It transforms me and you into we, signaling that the conversation or action is shared, that it belongs to both parties equally. Consider the simple difference between saying, "I want you to do this," and "let's do this together." The first statement may communicate authority, preference, or expectation, but it places the burden and focus entirely on the other person. It risks triggering resistance, defensiveness, or disengagement. The second, however, transforms the dynamic. It communicates partnership, shared purpose, and mutual investment. There is a profound psychological effect in this small shift. People are more likely to commit, to participate, and to engage emotionally when they feel they are not acting alone, but rather moving forward with someone who respects and values their contribution. Together is not just a word of inclusion, it is a word of empowerment. In human relationships, the power of together becomes even more evident. True attraction is rarely built on isolation or individual achievement alone. It thrives in shared experiences, in the subtle exchange of energy that occurs when two people feel aligned, safe, and mutually valued. By using together, you implicitly communicate respect for boundaries while simultaneously offering a sense of unity. This is why collaboration, teamwork, and partnership feel inherently attractive, because they satisfy a deep emotional and social need. When someone senses that you are invested in a together mindset, it signals that you are not just present for your own agenda, but for the collective emotional and experiential journey. In terms of communication, together also reflects emotional intelligence. It conveys empathy, understanding, and situational awareness. Using this word demonstrates that you recognize the other person as an active, equal participant rather than a passive listener or subordinate. This subtle psychological cue fosters trust, reduces tension, and strengthens rapport. People are naturally drawn to those who make them feel included, valued, and integral to a shared purpose. The word together is a linguistic vehicle for creating that feeling without overt persuasion or manipulation. It is quiet, composed, and profoundly effective. Moreover, together has the power to transform conflicts, disagreements, or high-pressure situations. When tension arises, the framing of a statement can significantly alter emotional response. Saying, "We need to figure this out," or "let's approach this together," immediately shifts perception. It reframes potential opposition as collaboration. It conveys that challenges are shared responsibilities rather than individual burdens. In this way, together nurtures resilience, reduces defensiveness, and fosters a sense of psychological safety. People are more willing to engage, to listen, and to respond positively when they feel they are navigating situations as equals. This aligns with behavioral studies showing that individuals perform and respond better in environments perceived as cooperative rather than hierarchical. Attraction, in its deepest and most sustainable form, is not about manipulation, performance, or artificial charm. It is about connection that feels authentic, safe, and mutually beneficial. Together embodies this principle. When you use it in conversation, you are signaling that you value shared experience over self-interest, collaboration over control, and presence over performance. It communicates quiet confidence and grounded authority, the kind of energy that draws people naturally rather than forcing attention. It is the linguistic equivalent of standing tall without tension, speaking with clarity without aggression, and listening with full awareness without distraction. The practical applications of together are wide-ranging. In leadership, it fosters loyalty and commitment. In relationships, it nurtures intimacy and trust. In everyday interactions, it cultivates warmth, engagement, and rapport. It works because it appeals to universal human needs, the need to belong, to be recognized, and to be valued. When someone senses that they are moving forward with you rather than being led, judged, or overlooked, the subtle magnetism of attraction emerges naturally. This is why individuals who consistently integrate together into their language, whether in collaboration, conversation, or emotional expression, tend to be remembered, respected, and deeply trusted. Using together also reinforces a sense of shared vision. It signals that success, joy, and growth are collective experiences, not solitary achievements. People are drawn to visionaries and communicators who make them feel part of a larger purpose. Together does not merely describe a state, it evokes it. It invites imagination, emotional engagement, and co-creation of experiences. It bridges the psychological gap between individuals and creates alignment in values, intentions, and emotional energy. It is essential, however, to pair together with sincerity and presence. Like the other words we have discussed, its power diminishes when used superficially or without authentic intent. True attraction emerges from congruence between words, tone, body language, and emotional awareness. When together is spoken with genuine intent, supported by calm composure, eye contact, and empathetic listening, it communicates reliability, warmth, and integrity. People are drawn not merely to what you say, but to the sense of safety and authenticity your presence conveys. Together also reinforces the subtle psychology of inclusion. It shifts focus from hierarchical dynamics, competition, or separation to shared experience and mutual respect. It emphasizes collaboration, empathy, and human connection, signaling that you are invested not in dominating or controlling, but in creating harmony, alignment, and mutual understanding. This is the core of attraction that is sustainable, meaningful, and profoundly magnetic. In conclusion, the four secret words, you, because imagine, and together, are not tricks, formulas, or manipulations. They are principles of influence rooted in human psychology, emotional intelligence, and authentic communication. Each word carries a subtle but immense power to shift perception, deepen connection, and foster attraction that transcends superficiality. You centers attention and validates the other person, because provides reasoning, clarity, and trust. Imagine invites participation, curiosity, and shared emotional experience. Together creates alignment, inclusion, and a sense of shared purpose. Used intentionally and sincerely, these words transform ordinary interaction into magnetic connection, demonstrating that attraction is not about performance, but presence.